Hi guys, my name's Adele Onyango and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hi y'all, I hope you're fantastic and having a brilliant week, a brilliant start to your day whenever you're listening to this. I am coming to you from New York. I am in Manhattan, my second time here. Last year, this same week, I was here for the Goalkeepers Conference, but this time around, I'm here to perform at a Moth Mainstage. Okay, so let me break it all down for you. The Moth is basically like a storytelling nonprofit, and they help people shape and tell stories from different corners of the world. They're based in the States though. It came about, I'm going to try and remember the actual story because the name The Moth is actually quite interesting. Their founder used to, why is there an ambulance? There's always something happening in New York anyway. Their founder was loved storytelling and hanging out with his boys on his front porch back in the day, telling stories. And they tell stories until late in the night, and they would have to put on the lamps and the lights on, right? And those lamps and lights, just ignore that ambulance. I really, let me just check what is happening, lest it's my hotel and okay, it's gone. So the lamps and the lights would attract moths, hence the Moth. Yeah, it's pretty dope. And I've loved everything about them. I listened to their podcast religiously. Just look for it on, so I listened to it on Apple Podcasts, but I'm pretty sure it's on other platforms as well. But how I got to work with the Moth is an interesting story. So in August last year, they have a global community program. So they travel out and they select different people and you go basically for a storytelling camp. So I was one of the people selected. But I knew I was not going to get leave because I had already just taken about 4 days off. So, and I pray my boss is not listening. But if he is, just forgive me, man. Because you were not going to give me leave anyway. So I had to do what I had to do. I got someone, I'm not going to name who, and I got a doctor's note, long story short. Gave it to my boss, which basically said I needed bed rest. But then I was at this week-long Moth Global Community Program workshop, and I worked on a story about my late mom and coming up with the words that are on her tombstone because that was my responsibility. It was just such a powerful experience. I've spoken about it before on this podcast. It was so powerful. It was almost like group therapy. You know, you're with strangers, people you really don't know, but you leave having made such good friends. And it really just awakened for me an appreciation, deeper appreciation of storytelling. It's really such a powerful way to change the world, to inform, to educate, but also to connect. Right? It's a brilliant way to connect. And so that workshop really gave me some of the foundations I needed in terms of skill to be able to help people tell their stories even on Legally Clueless. So I loved that experience. So that was in August. I think it was October or November of last year. They reached out to me and they wanted me to host a main stage Moth event they were doing in Rwanda. Basically, I was hosting and telling a bit of a story. That went really well. I enjoyed it. And then it was my first time in Rwanda. I really loved it. And then this year, they reached out to me a week ago, I think. They were like, yeah, we'd love you to be one of the storytellers at our main stage event in New York. And I was just like, what? Are you kidding me? Because I don't know if you guys know this about me, but if you're pretty close to me, you know, I used to have this poetry event that was every month about 10 or so years ago. And, you know, I'd perform my poetry and other poets as well and musicians and stuff like that. So that's really been my passion. Not to say that I didn't like radio the time I was in radio, but if you knew me, you knew this was a slight deviation from what, as a creative, I really enjoyed doing, which was storytelling and using my words and stuff like that. And to be able to then drift back onto that path and to be performing in fucking New York, like... Does that even happen? And then to be performing a story about my mom. It sounds strange, but I'm I can feel her happiness, I can feel her smiling down. Like, I feel like this is something that my mom is very proud of. And for me, it's a way to really honor her. I always used to struggle with, how do I honor my mom after she died? How do I honor her but not lose my identity? That was something that was very hard for me to figure out. I think I did figure it out last year when I did a capsule collection in her honor, because that's something I would do, and it was something that was still celebrating her. So this for me is another opportunity for me to honor her while still keeping my identity. I don't know, for you who's lost somebody close to you, what I felt immediately after my mom died is that I tried very hard to become her and to be, champion of breast cancer stuff and blah, 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 which is not bad because, we have to spread the awareness on the disease, but it was me trying to pick up from where she left off. And you see, in the process of doing that, I was kind of losing myself and my identity. So I woke up from that and I had a problem with that. For me, it's always going forward from that time. How do I honor her? Yes, but still keep my identity. Anyway, so I have a meeting with one of the members of the Moth team later today to go over my story. I did this cool thing because, the flight here, I did the direct flight with Kenya Airways. It's like 15 hours. Where, you guys? Longest flight ever. But it's less. Last year when I came, I did the connecting thing, which is okay, but it's more tiring because you have to get out again, probably go through... Do you go through another security? I think so. Security search, which, is necessary, but so exhausting. So I do actually prefer the direct flight, but the 15 hours are long. So what I did was I recorded my story when I was still at home in Nairobi, and so on the flight, I would play it on loop, and imagine it just got stuck in my head. I was just like, why didn't people tell me this in high school? I could have passed my exams. But yeah, so I have a meeting today to go over my story, and then I'm going to have dinner with a few people that I work with on an initiative called Better for Kenya. So one of the people I actually met yesterday was Janet Mbugua. If you are in Kenya, you definitely know her. She's a media personality, but also a champion in terms of fighting to end period poverty. And so we just had a good time. We had cocktails and shots and just had a slight girls' night out. Slight. We have to do it properly. The jet lag got to us. But then today I'm going to meet her and the rest of the Better for Kenya team. So that should be super fun. And speaking of jet lag, it's pretty real. I was up at 3 a.m. this morning. And I was just like, I am alert. I am ready to go. So I had to force myself to sleep. They say for the first 2 to 3 days, I think you have to push yourself not to sleep. Because during the day at a point you get sleepy because you're like, but it's nighttime. Your body's like, what is it? But it isn't nighttime where you are. So you have to push and just do active things so that when you get into bed, like in New York time, when I get into bed New York time, I'm knocked out until New York morning, not at waking up at 3 a.m. I'm super excited to be here. My performance is on Wednesday night. Please pray for me wherever you are. I don't want to niche, aka fuck up. So I'm really hoping that goes pretty well. I'm sure it will. Because the thing is, you're telling a story that's your story. You know what I mean? So even if the words aren't the way you rehearse them, it's still your story. Nobody can tell your story like you. That sounds very quotable and deep, right? Nobody can tell your story like but I seriously believe it. I seriously believe that. But speaking of stories, 100 African stories, I got to record somebody who is just hilarious. I actually met back when I was doing open mic. I'm pretty sure he either performed at 1 or 2 of the open mics, but he definitely did attend most of them. And he had for the longest time this blog that I would never miss reading because he has a fantastic way with words. It was called Dear Doris, and it was just his hilarious day-to-day engagements with this, trying to impress a certain girl. He's a really good writer. So I reached out to him and I was like, Ian, I think you have many stories. Do you want to be on 100 African stories? He was like, sure. And so now I went to record him. He's like, I have so many stories. And then he mentioned, there's this other one when I didn't have money to pay for my matatu ride. I was like, that is the one we want. So if you're not from Kenya, because from my insights, I see I have very many listeners from outside. A matatu in Kenya is basically the public transport. All right. So it could be a van that seats 14 passengers. Yeah, meant to seat 14 passengers. Often overloaded, and then there are others that seat more. I can't remember I've never lived on a route that has the big ones. I lived in Langata, so it was mainly the 14-seater ones. Or is it 15-seater? I forget, but around that number. This is basically his story of getting into this public transport vehicle, the matatu, that's what we call it, and not having money, and what he had to do to make sure they still got him home. Yet he couldn't pay for the fare. And I think he just comes up with a very genius plan. But kids, do not try this at home.
100 African stories.
There is no proper life that you live in university as a musician.
If I constantly just walked around feeling sorry for myself, I'm never going to get anything done.
There was a bit of frustration in between all of that.
I've been breaking my back for this company.
Therapy is not for the weak or for the crazy.
Stories from Africa.
So my name is Ian and I come from Nairobi, and that's actually where I am now. But I spent a lot of my childhood in Kisumu. I saw Nairobi for the first time in 2006. I came for a funeral. I've never gone back. So a few years back, this was probably 2008. I'm guessing the year because I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
I'd just gotten my Story Moja job as an illustrator. And it was those entry-level manenos. Your salary is just enough for going back to work. It is your transport back. So at that time, I was living in Kileleshwa with my parents, and Story Moja was in Spring Valley. So let me explain to you before I get to the story, just the commute to work and back. To go to work, you had to go to town. The mat would drop you at Ajip. Then you walk to Koja, then you take another matatu to Spring Valley. But that's not important. The important bit is coming back, which is from Spring Valley to Koja, then you had to walk to Odeon, then get another matatu to Kileleshwa. So now, this one time, I am in a matatu to Koja from work. It's about 7-8 o'clock in the night, which I'm not too sure of because it was dark, so I'm just getting figures. And I remember I had 1,000 bob in my pocket, no other money. And you just know Kenyan makangas, oh my gosh, you give them 1,000 bob, you will beg for your change back. So all this time from Spring Valley to Koja, I'm asking this guy for my change back, and he keeps saying, I'll give it to you, I'll give it to you, I'll give it to you, until we get to Koja and I walk out of the matatu. And I didn't even walk far. It was like 100 meters. And I'm just like, shit. I have forgotten my change. I turn back and all these matatus look the same. I walk around looking for this guy. Because you realize this is the only money I have. And from town to Kileleshwa, actually, how is it even going to work? So for a few minutes, I walk around. I can't even remember the guy's face, which is so weird because I've been talking to him for the past like 45 minutes. So I give up. I check in my backpack and I find a 10 bob, which will not help me much. And I think for a minute, by the way, I'm walking towards Odeon because I have to get home, even though I don't know how I'm going to afford it. And I'm really thinking what I'm going to do. So I call my brother Pastor and I tell Pastor, hey, you guys, are you home? And if you are, could you wait for me at the matatu bus stop so that you pay for my matatu because I don't have any money. He wasn't at home, so I can't help. So I'm stuck. I get to Odeon and I see a shop, a small duka. There's normally this restaurant with so many lights, Christmas lights, Christmas all through the year. Then there's this small shop just next to it, things hanging on it. There are sweets, suku, and I see ENO. And I remember this idea I had. It hit me like ton of bricks. This is my only way out. And I go to this shop and buy ENO. With this 10 shillings, I can only get one sachet of ENO. ENO is now, it's like when you have issues with your stomach, ENO is an antacid. So what my plan was, normally when you take ENO, when you put it in your mouth, the correct way to take it is put it in water, then drink it, then it clears your system. Yeah. But if you take it directly, it forms quite vigorously in your mouth. And that element of ENO was my sole way out of this mess. I buy this ENO and I put it in my pocket, my breast pocket, and I get into the matatu. The only way I saw this working was if I sat at the farthest, at the back of the matatu, between two guys. You know, at the matatu you have 3 guys at the back. The only way I saw this working was if I sat between the 2 guys, because this thing would only work if you shock everyone in this matatu. It had to be done very carefully. So I'm sitting between this really big guy on my left, and there's this woman who's on a phone on my right. The guy on my left is clutching on his laptop bag. Then my instinct like, hey, this guy is pretty uneasy about matatus and things like that, so this is my way. Immediately the matatu starts moving, the conductor starts taking money from people. So I take my phone and fake a call, because I need to get as far as possible from town for me to do this experiment of mine. So this guy keeps on asking, hey, pesa nyuma, pesa nyuma, pesa nyuma, but I'm on my phone. So I keep signaling, telling him, hey, relax, I'm going to give you your money, relax, I'm going to give you your money. It gets to a point where we are at Museum Hill roundabout. Those days there were no overpass, nini, so just a roundabout. Now everyone in the matatu is looking at me because I'm the only one who hasn't paid, and this conductor is getting very irritated by this situation. I'm still on my phone because I know if my plan doesn't go the way I'm seeing it and I'm dropped here, I'm finished, because at that time it was really dangerous to be working at night. Shoot, I've skipped a big part. Okay. Can I go back? Can I go back? Can I go back?
Yes.
I've skipped the part where I actually take the ENO at the beginning.
Okay.
So I'm in town and the matatu is moving and I take ENO and put it in my mouth. But I don't finish it. I take just a small bit of it. But you remember I was faking a call.
Yeah.
And an actual call actually comes through. And it's this friend of mine. I've not spoken to her in fact, we've never spoken on the phone.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what does she want? So I swallow the ENO and I pick the call. She's like, hi, how are you doing? Oh, I was just saying hi. Which is such a terrible time to find out how I'm doing, because your call has made the situation actually worse. So skip to where I left off.
Yeah.
So we are just past Museum Hill and I take my last dose of ENO. It was quite hard because everyone is looking at you and you have to, time when no one is. And I can feel this thing foaming in my mouth. We get to the turn, so we're turning into Riverside Drive, and now everyone is mad. Hey, you guys pay, what's wrong? Like, pay for it. And that's when my plan comes to play. The plan is I fake a seizure, and because this thing is foaming in my mouth, it looks a bit real.
Yeah.
So I fall on this guy on my left who was holding onto his laptop, who weirdly enough screams out of his mind, which is good for my plan.
Yeah.
So everyone is like, oh, what's going on? And I'm shaking terribly, which is not a cool thing to do, but still, I need to get home. I'm shaking so terribly, the matatu screeches off the road and parks just after the university gate. Of course, you can't just come back to normal. I'm still shaky. My eyes are closed, and I'm being carried out of the car. I can feel myself being carried out, but I have to still act like, hey, witchcraft. So I'm being taken out. I am put just by the road. There's a crowd forming around me, and I'm still shaking off I'm allowed to say ass.
Yeah.
I'm still shaking off my ass. I'm throwing my feet left and right as if it's chaos. I'm even shocking myself. From somewhere at the back of the crowd, there's this lady who says, I am a nurse. And for a split second, I stopped moving. Because I had not planned. This was part of the plan. I had not seen beyond this part. So she's like, I'm a nurse. So guys are giving away, and I have to open my eyes so that I see what's now going on. And from movies I've watched before, normally when you're having a seizure and there's a nurse in the crowd, she has this biro pen that she has to stick in your neck. I'm forgetting the name of the procedure. And I'm like, I just need to get home. No biros, please. And guys are fanning me. My shirt now is all the way opened. My shoes are off, as in everyone is a doctor now. And because I'm so shocked by there being a nurse in this crowd, I have to act like things are getting back to normal.
Yeah.
So I'm not shaking as much, and my eyes are open. I'm not breathing too erratically.
Yeah.
So I'm just, things have to look like, okay, so the worst has passed. So she's asking me all these questions. I wouldn't know how to answer. She's like, when did this start? I'm like, the more this happens, the more things are getting out of hand. If I bring you back to my plan was I fake this seizure close to home so that if things go out of hand, I can actually walk home. Mm-hmm. But Chiromo is so far from home that not only has my plan chappered, but there's a doctor who's now taking this plan to another level. Because the driver is like, hey, you guys, we are losing another trip because they have to go back to town and do their last trip. And people have to start moving. So the conductor is like, hey, guys, should get back to the car and I should be put in the car so that I'm taken to the hospital. So I'm like, what? Another level of complication. This thing just getting more and more complex. So I'm now seated at the front. I don't have my shoes. I can't remember who took my shoes. My bag is... Things are just not making sense. All this time, this nurse is holding me. We are going to hospital. We get close to where I live and I have to convince everyone who's now so confused about this. But things actually... Okay, I'm back to normal. So I'm trying to make conversation with the nurse. I'm like, hey, that was close. Now you have to look like you're back in the game. So like, don't worry, we are taking to hospital. There's a hospital just after where we live. It's called Our Sister, or I'm forgetting that clinic. Either way, we get to my bus stop, which was Makueni Road. And I tell the driver, by the way, I live on this road. So if you just leave me here, I'll be fine. Please remember, the whole story about my pay is totally dead. No one even remembers I'm not paid. Yeah. So they're like, unaishi kwa hii barabara? We can take you home. Yeah. How far down? I'm like, not too far down. So go down the road and we get to our gate. And the driver and the conductor are who carrying me. Then I'm like, if we go into this gate and my parents see me being lifted out of a tattoo, I don't even know how I'm going to explain. So I'm just like, don't worry. The watchman, who at that time was called William, the watchman will take you away from here. Like, no. We have to make sure you get home safe. I'm like, my guys, I am alright. I am so fine. I just need my shoes and my bag, and I'll be alright. My shoes come from the back somewhere. By the way, my shirt is still open. And William is wondering what's going on outside the gate. William is the guard. He opens the gate and he sees me. We look at each other. Yeah. I see you, see me, see you. Yeah. And I signal him just a bit, just calm down. I got this. So I have my shoes in my hands, my bag, and he opens the gate and I walk in. And we close the gate and the matatu like, hey, by the way, I'm not daktari. Go see a doctor. And I will do that. And the matatu goes, and William is like, what's going on? Like, that is a story for another day. And I walk into the house. I got home. My plan half worked. So how I thought of the ENO thing is I'd seen it happen in high school. One of my friends did it. And I was just like, And for him, actually, it was so seamless. No problems whatsoever. I was with him and he shocked the hell out of me. This guy I've been in school with for see how many years. I had not known he has a condition like this. So I knew for sure the shock factor is maximum.
Catch our next African stories in the next episode.
So I have only once before heard of this ENO trick, like using it to fake a seizure. I went to IB at a school in Nairobi called St. Mary's, aka Saints. And I just heard a story that some years back there was an entire class that did it, and some of the teachers were like, are they possessed? Yeah, because I can imagine seeing 20 plus students having a seizure. Even me, by the way, my first thought would be like, what witchcraft is happening here? But apparently one student snitched and ENO was banned. Listen, editing the story has been hilarious. So I actually recorded the story 3 weeks to a month ago, and I've only just edited it today. So I was like, let me look for a cafe near my hotel, have breakfast as I'm working on this Legally Clueless thing. So I use my GPS. I'm searching for cafes. There's one called Something Joe. And one of the comments was that it's a nice place to get some work done, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yes, this is it. walk all the way there. I make it seem like it's far, but I don't like walking. But this town, like, it's better to walk. But it wasn't far, actually. It was like a 7-minute walk. It was not too far. For a lazy person, it's far, but it's not. I get all the way there, and then I'm like, let me just check my bag, because I was not using my backpack, not my handbag. I was like, I feel in my heart like I didn't put my purse in here. Open my bag, and for sure, my purse was not there. And I'm just like, fuck. And this place doesn't have M-Pesa. I've never felt like, I wish this was home. Things work. Anyway, so I don't have any money, so I'm just like, fuck. I have to go back to the hotel and get my purse. Walk all the way back, and then by this point, the laziness in my bones is just like, I'm not walking that distance. There's a Starbucks around the corner. It'll have to do. Anyway, so I was there editing this story, and I was laughing throughout. I'm sure the people sitting next to me were just thinking this chick is mad, because Ian. Then the part where he talks about the guy besides him who starts screaming. Oh no, and the part about the nurse going, I'm a doctor. That has totally made my day. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Do share your comments and thoughts on it on Instagram. That's at Legally Clueless Podcast, or just drop a comment wherever it is that you're listening to it. I'm going to go into rehearsals now for the Wednesday performance, and my friend Chemba, who's from Malawi, she's also around, so she tells me there's a block party in Brooklyn, so I'm going to try and get there after rehearsals and then go for dinner in the night. And I will carry my microphone and try and just grab a few stories or like fun things, almost like what I did in Ghana. And I'll probably, if I do get anything interesting, I'll probably use that in the next week's episode, but I'll already be back home by then. Anywho, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Legally Clueless. And that's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.